Hey guys, Nick from ArchCityPLO.com and Arch City Poker. Today's video going to be part 3 of what is now a 3-part series on how to play your draws in poker. Want to touch base on a few things that a few of you had questions about or had some feedback on after part 2. We're going to talk about stack to pot ratio a little bit more in position and how that affect what types of hands you play pre-flop that are like really drawing hands, the hands that you do have some flush draws or straight draws that you have in post-flop. And then the other's multi-way compared to heads up. And that's a pretty easy one to cover, but I'll get to that in a sec. So pre-flop, you want to make sure that you are deep enough to be able to speculate with these drawing hands like these suited connectors, hands that can make the flushes or flush draws, straights or straight draws. If you have lower SPRs, it's going to be harder to do that. There's not as much room post-flop to draw. There's also not as much room to bet aggressively with them to take full advantage of any fold equity that there might be. And that's another big part of this too, guys, is that generally you're going to want to be in position always in poker anyways, but especially with these drawing hands, when you're out of position, it's a lot tougher to check call with them if you feel like you have the equity to continue, but you don't have the fold equity to play them aggressively. But if you're in position, you have a little bit more of, or not a little bit more, but very often a lot more of an informational advantage. And you're going to be able to realize your equity in a lot better of a manner. It's going to be a lot more efficient to be in position, a lot easier to play overall with these draws post-flop. So key takeaway from that first part is just make sure that you are not like cold calling raises pre-flop with hands like 7-6 suited when a player only has like 30 to 40 bigs in a stack. You definitely want to be deep enough. You also want to focus on being in position. Now, multi-way, and your pre-flop play can help set you up for this type of situation and set yourself up for success. But if you are multi-way and you're thinking about drawing with just a flush draw, you need to make sure that the more players there are in the pot, the more likely it is that there are going to be 3 or more players on the turn and on future streets. You need to be careful about drawing with non-nutty draws. So if you have a non-nut open-ender, a weaker flush draw, you need to be very careful because other players could be drawing with the better version of that hand, so there could be what's called reverse implied odds. Basically, it's that, you guys know that implied odds, when you have a flush draw or straight draw, if you hit, it's assuming that in the future in the hand, your opponent's going to be able to pay you off if you hit that hand. So those are the implied odds, kind of in a nutshell, so to speak. Reverse implied odds, just the exact opposite of that, the reverse. If you do hit, it's actually likely that it could hurt you, that your opponent could be dominating you, and then you could be overvaluing your hand at that point. So those are two important concepts to the implied odds, the reverse implied odds. Those are important to keep in mind. Now, with implied odds, I think most players, they will overestimate their implied odds. They just assume they're always going to get paid if they hit. Flushes are much more visible. When a flush comes in, a lot of players are they actually get overly scared. They think players have flushes a lot more often than they really do. But completed straights, I think, have more implied odds, especially in the low stakes games where players aren't as good of hand readers. Straights just aren't as visible. So if you are planning on calling with an open-ender, that's likely going to be pretty solid as far as your implied odds if you think you can't play it aggressively, if you don't have fold equity, if you don't have the range advantage. But if you have a flush draw, those don't usually have the same implied odds. Now, it depends on your opponent as well. If your opponent's very fishy, they don't really care what your hand is or what your range looks like, then obviously you can factor that in. But those are all very important post-flop takeaways. And like I said, multi-way, the big thing, guys, just make sure you're drawing to better versions of the hands that you might be willing to draw with heads up. Heads up, it's a lot different. Those hands are a lot more visible. It's not as likely that you guys have the same draw, but if you do end up 3 ways, you got to be a little bit more careful. 4, 5, 6 ways. You guys have been in some of these pots and especially these live low stakes games, then there is going to be a really good chance that your weaker draws could be dominated by guys that are drawing with better. So some quick thoughts there on part 3. Go ahead and let me know what you guys think. Another thing I wanted to touch base on real quick again, I feel like I did address this in the last few videos, but I've seen a lot of like comments or feedback about longer content or hand history examples or more specifics, more graphics, guys, that's not going to happen at this point. The YouTube channel, I'm happy to be able to bring some free content to the community, and a lot of the content that needs, as far as more analysis, like more digging into, that's going to take more time. And so that's why I have that on the training site for the guys that are willing to commit to put in that time. They're going to pay for that kind of quality and that value. And so I don't have the time. I wish I did for you guys, but I don't have the time within my schedule to make like 15, 20-minute videos with these specific examples and getting a lot of the software out. I do a free step-by-step video monthly to do a free hand example, so I think that's nice. But for now, these are the videos where you guys are going to be able to view, and there's still a lot of value in these. There's, I think I've got a lot of different topics that I cover on the channel that you guys can comb through and help you improve. So hope that cleared things up with that. And if you guys got any questions or comments, as usual, hit me up in the comment section. Otherwise, click on the link in the description box. Come visit the training site. Still loading content, of course, on there weekly. And otherwise, I'll see you guys for next week's video. Thanks.